Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Becky. If you're basically tuning in, you'll be wanting to make this bag, which is the overnight bag. So I've designed this bag, the Jet Set overnight bag, as one of my new latest patterns. The pattern is for you to be able to take on a plane, have it over a handle on a suitcase, and basically have it go into a weekend away. Yeah, I love this bag. Right, so let me talk you through the features. So first of all, you've got a quick, easy access front slip pocket. I basically kept my, when I used mine last, I've got a cork version. I put my hand sanitizer in here, a few spare masks, because obviously you never know when you're going to need some of those. And then on the back, it's got a gadget padded slip pocket, so you can basically put your iPad in, or your Kobo, e-reader, whatever, or magazine, lollipop, some munchies. And then an added feature is, now I personally use crutches when I go out and about, and especially because I do a bit of travelling. I need my hands free, obviously, because if I need my GPS on my phone to find somewhere where I'm staying that night, or yeah, so I normally have a suitcase with me with a handle, and the handle that I use on my suitcase is one of the standard handles that's got two bars, about 10 centimetres approximately apart, 10 to 15 centimetres apart. However, handles on suitcases and on briefcase trolleys that you get for in the city and carrying your laptops around, the handles are all different. They're not the same. So I've basically done a handle keeper on this bag, which caters for majority of the handles that are on the market. Now I've made this one into where it's the same handle as what I have on my suitcase, which is the two bars and the little bar going across, which is about 10 to 15 centimetres approximately apart. So if you have the large handles, you, like I mentioned in the video, you basically just eliminate a part of this sew along, which I tell you in the video to do. If you've got a T-bar, which is one pole with like a T-shape, obviously called T-bar for some reason, you basically do implement what I did in the video. So in this bag, it's got actually a Velcro section here, which is basically the bit that you adjust for your handle on your suitcase. So, however, I found mine was perfectly the size that it was once it's completely folded down. So I just basically slip this over my handle on the suitcase, and basically it just basically sits on top of my suitcase. Now inside, I've really stuffed this out. I'm not getting all the stuffing out, but inside is a roomy compartment. I'm not kidding, I can fit 3 beach towels in this. That's 3 rolled up beach towels inside this bag. It is very roomy. There is an inside slip pocket, which you can divide up into different sections to carry like so your hair straighteners if you're a girl, or like electronic devices, a man shaver or whatever you want to store in that slip pocket. And then there is a large zip pocket as well, compartment. This bag isn't a quick sew. I'm going to put it out there, it isn't a quick sew. However, it can take up to about two days to make, including cutting out. That's 2 solid days of sewing. However, take this video, stop and start it as much as you want, and then basically learn little bits as you go along. Now in the pattern, I tell you hints and tips as I go along through the pattern, but even in this video there is more hints and tips. Even like the handles here, this has got a cotton webbing inside. Now I don't mention that in the pattern, so you might want to watch the video and see how I make really strong but sewable handles. Yeah, so it's nice and roomy, nice size. There's a crossbody strap as well. Mine's quite short because the person that I've made it for is a short person like myself. It's just so nice and comfortable to wear. Yeah, so if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Becky and I own a brand called RjAf.MAKES. RjAf.MAKES is a sewing brand which generally is bag patterns and bag hardware and fabric. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Drop me a comment if you're new to bag making or if you're new to sewing and want to get into bag making. Drop me a comment or just say hi in the comments. I'd like to know where you're from. And then if you like me and this video and how I teach, basically click the subscribe button or hit the notification bell, and basically any video that I upload in the future will be notified to you to watch back. And there is sometimes free patterns, so watch out. There is some free patterns. I've got just over 60 odd videos. There is some free patterns on there and some free tutorials. So the pattern is an RjAf.MAKES pattern, which is my brand. You can find it over on my website, which is www.rjafmakes.com, as a digital download or a paper pattern. Yes, I do paper patterns as well for those who haven't got printers or just a bit worried that they might print it off at the wrong size. Please follow the video. There is so many hints and tips through the video. It's quite a lengthy video. Without further ado, let's get making this bag. Right, so we've now seen the bag at the start of the video. I'm going to just quickly run through the pattern. You can either buy it as a digital download or a paper pattern. The paper pattern, you don't really need to do anything to the paper template. You just basically cut them out on the black outer line and basically go ahead and use them. Now with the digital downloads, I've got a digital download here. With the digital download, you need to stick them together. So you've got like a little star, and this was two separate pieces when it printed out. You basically cut where it tells you to cut, which is the outer line. On one of the pieces you'll cut through the star, and then basically you'll stick the two pieces together, the A and the B pieces, and basically stick this star and make a full star. So basically you'll have 3 pattern pieces, which is your flap, your outer slip pocket front and your main body. Your main body pocket piece, and this goes for the paper pattern or digital download, you'll have several pattern pieces included on this one, but you're not cutting them out. You're just basically going to fold it in certain places. So for instance, you've got your main body, which is your full one here. And then you've got to fold it here for your outer slip pocket, which is your padded back slip pocket. And then you can fold it again for your inside slip pocket. You're obviously still placing it on the fold because this is the fold line here. And when you also fold it here, it's placed on the fold. So no matter what, this piece is always placed on the fold on this long straight edge. Now this bit here is explained within the pattern, and I will tell you a bit more in the actual video, but as you can probably see on my pattern piece already, I've actually cut into it because I've already made this bag a few times. And basically the little holes that I've generated is where I'm going to pop my chalk pencil through those holes so I can see where the pocket placement is. So this is actually your pocket placement part. Now I'm just going to talk a bit about the slip pocket. The slip pocket has a little triangle at the end. Don't cut this triangle out, okay, because your seam allowance is already allocated within this triangle. So basically in the pattern I tell you to make a hole at the point of the triangle, and then I tell you to cut into where the 2 black marks are on the edge, and then basically we will draw that onto the back of your pattern pieces when we come to make the outer slip pocket. This part here will generate your darts. So if you are printing out a digital download, on the very first piece that you get, you have a little square in the top left hand corner. You need to just print out that first page. Don't print out any of the pattern or anything like that. Print out that first page and then measure that square. It should be 1 inch. Now if it's less, just minously under 1 inch, because your printer is I know certain HPs don't print out full 100%, then either go back into your settings and set it at 102 or 103 printing out percentage, or if you're still stuck, private message me. All the details within here and I can talk you through your computer and get it printed out. But you need to make sure that's 100% when you print it out, that's 100% the size of 1 inch, or else the other pieces that you have to manually cut out will not fit the circumference of the bag. Okay, let's talk a bit about inside the pattern. Right, so the pattern is basically has got quite a lot of notes at the front. On the first page is full of notes, the second page in. My advice is please read those, because there is some hints and tips, plus also you'll get some hints and tips of the types of fabric that you're actually using. And also it tells you a bit about the mix combo of the stabilizers. Now I'll get on to that now. Right, so there is a red section and a blue section. Today I'm only doing the blue section, which is an all fusible fleece bag. The bag can actually be made in fusible fleece and foam. So the first combination, which is the red combination, is fusible fleece and foam. So fusible foam will go on your main outer body pieces, your zip gusset pieces and your base gusset piece. Then the fusible fleece of the red combination will be your outer slip pocket at the back, which is your padded slip pocket, and your front slip pocket and your flap of the front slip pocket. Now if you are very new to bag making and only made like 1 or 2 bags but want to make this bag, my option is go for the blue section. So that's everything that I've just mentioned there is fusible fleece. It means that it's easier to control going underneath your sewing machine. It means that you're not going to be stressed and want to give up bag making. So all you're cutting out, it tells you, for instance, here on the flap, no, we use the main body. Okay, so it says to cut 2 main outer fabrics, cut 2 lining fabrics. You've got to cut 2 medium weight interfacing pieces. Sorry, 4 medium weight interfaces pieces, and then you're going to need to cut fusible foam stroke fleece 2 pieces. Now it says in brackets, if doing the mixed combination, only cut the foam. Now if you're doing the blue standard, you're going to cut the fusible fleece. Okay, and it's mentioned quite a lot on here. Now in certain places like the flap, it says cut the medium weight interfacing fabric. Only cut 1 if using cork or PU. Now I'm going to talk about that. I'm using PU on this bag, which is PU leather, which isn't a real leather, it's a faux leather. It's a plastic based leather. Now my faux leather has actually got a bit of a stretch to it, so I've eliminated these brackets here and actually just fused fusible interfacing on the back using the recommended heat temperature and time that you hold the iron on to the actual PU. you need to use your discretion on that, whether your PU or your fabric has got a lot of stretch. I'll show you mine. So mine hasn't got stretch no more because I've actually put the stabilizers on, but mine was stretching quite a lot this way, and I know full well when I put this onto the bag, it is basically going to be a lot bigger than the actual bag's circumference, that what I need, because over time you will be stretching it around the corners, and then by the time you come to sew it on, there'll be loads of creases and it won't look professional, the bag. So like I say, use your discretion. If you are stuck, don't hesitate. All my contact details are on the back of the paper pattern, but if you've got the digital one, all the contact details for me are here on the first page. Don't hesitate, please do message me. I don't want you to mess up the bag if you're going to, if you're a bit confused. I'd rather help you at the start and make sure it's right, so you're not going to give up bag making. Okay, so basically read through that. Follow this video as well, because this video will give you extra hints and tips. So then you're going to prepare your fabric. So for instance, I'll use this base gusset as my example. I've got my PU which had a stretch to it, so I fused my medium weight interfacing to the wrong side using the medium weight interfacing manufacturer's instructions. And then I've got so I'm doing the blue section. I've got my fusible fleece, trimmed it back all the way around, which it tells you to do on step 1 of preparing the fabric. I trimmed it all the way back, then I fused it to the wrong side of the gusset. I've done that for all my pattern pieces that require a heavy stabilizer, so I've got one on this one as well. Now if you're using fusible foam, you still need to trim it out, so you need to trim it all the way back, your fusible foam piece, and then fuse that to the wrong side. You should have a gap between 1/4 of an inch all the way around to 3/8 of an inch all the way around, and that's on every piece that you're going to put either foam or fusible fleece on. So I'm going to talk to you next about what you will need, as in bag, hardware, and zips and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to run quickly through everything that you need as in hardware and some things that you need for your sewing machine. As for other tools, I will run through those when we come through to making that certain part within the bag, because there is quite a lot of tools that I will generally use. Some of them are the basic, like your underclips and stuff like that, which are self-explanatory, but some that are not self-explanatory I will talk about when we get to that point in the video. Right, so I've got my main zip closure number 5. I've got 2 zip pulls on that. I'm going to sew over these 2 ends here to stop the 2 zip pulls coming off, and the zip pulls are going in the opposite direction to each other so it can open up large. I've got my standard number 3 zip, which is my inside zip. I've got my main lock, which is for my front slip pocket. Now in the pattern I show you how to use a screw one that's on the channel. It has screws in it, but I know full well that I sometimes don't always have those ones in stock in my shop at www.RjAf.MAKES.com. So I'm going to teach you this one, which is a push style one. As you can see, it's got little jagged teeth in there. You'll need some glue, which I'm going to talk about. Also in the pattern, the washer is different. So the one that's in the pattern is quite self-explanatory, and I already have a video of how to install that specific style of lock, the one that's got the screws for the channel, and it's got a washer that's got loads of little slits on the back. Now, because I haven't mentioned this one or shown pictures in the pattern, I'm going to show you this one in the video. I've got a handmade tag, that's optional, basically totally optional. It's totally up to you if you want to use it, but I'm going to use it because I do show you where to install it in the pattern. I've got my strap ends, which come with little micro screws which go in those little holes at the back. It's got a little channel which your handle, raw edges of your handle will go in there, so you can't really see them. I've got my lobster clasps, my 2D rings, my 4 rectangle rings, and my strap adjuster, which are kind of self-explanatory bag hardware. I've got my, now this has several names, mine is called Hook and Eye or Hook and Loop, depending on which manufacturer I can get in at the time. You can also buy the branded name called Velcro, and it's just basically got a soft side which is your loop side, and then you've got a harder side which is your hook side. The tools that I'm definitely going to be using on my sewing machine is my walking foot or my Teflon foot. My machine only needs my Teflon foot. However, some people don't like the Teflon foot and use a walking foot. The walking foot or the Teflon foot is a must. It means that your stitches will be such more even when sewing and there's no bunching up of stitches or anything. You're going to need a size 16 needle. A size 16 needle will help eat through the will help sew through the actual fabric. And then you're going to need a polyester thread. So I'm using Moon Coats thread, which has got elasticity. So because it's got elasticity, it means it can stretch a bit where needed on the bag. Don't use 100% cotton, so a bit like Aurifil, don't use that because it's basically cotton fabric. It can easily snap, especially if you overfill your bag, and then your seams will come undone. You definitely need a polyester thread. Now you can use a brand called Gutermann, and they have a Pacific Part range in their Gutermann range, and it's called Sew All Thread. Sew All Thread is brilliant. I just haven't got this colour in Sew All Thread at the moment. I would prefer to use Sew All Thread, but I've got Moon Coats thread. Okay, so we're gonna, for this section, we're going to make the outer front of the bag. So for this section, you're going to need one main body piece, and that's outer fabric. I've used fusible interfacing on the wrong side, and then I've I've personally gone for fusible fleece, but if you're doing the mixed combo, you would have your foam on this section here, the fusible foam. You will need to trim it back all the way around, free of fleece or foam. You're going to need 2 rectangle ring tabs. Now I'm using PU as my contrast fabric, and my PU had a stretch, so I've gone ahead and interfaced both of those. I've just used the non-woven medium weight interfacing, which is called Fuse It, and that's my own personal brand, which can be found on my website. Then I've got the front pocket flap. I've got my main contrast piece, which once again I've already showed you, has got interfacing on and fusible fleece. And then what I suggest in the pattern is for the lining of the flap and also the slip pocket part is to use your main outer fabric, because when we come to make it, if you haven't rolled your seams correctly and when you've turned it the right way out, the flap, and gone to top stitch, you could possibly see some of your fabric. If you're using a really strong contrast lining fabric, like mine's a light blue, you will be seeing light blue on the flap. It won't look nice, so my advice is to use your main outer fabric as your lining fabric just for these 2 pieces here. Just means that you won't see it if you do tend to have a little bit of the lining showing. Now, so that being said, I've used fusible interfacing on the wrong side of that one. Same again, the Fuse It medium weight interfacing that I sell. And then once again, you've got your outer slip pocket sections. You've got your lining, which is your main outer fabric that I've used for my lining. I've got interfacing on the back of that. And then on this one, which is my main outer piece, contrast fabric, I've got medium weight interfacing, and I've using the fusible fleece. So we're going to start off with the flap first. So you're going to need your press lock, and pop this to one side, and we're going to work on making the flap. So we're going to pop the two right sides together, two flap pieces right sides together, and clip all the way around. On the top straight edge, you're going to leave a turning gap of approximately 4 inches to 4.5 inches. I'm just going to eyeball that. Okay, I personally draw 2 lines on so I know where my stop and start sewn lines are. I'm now going to go to my sewing machine using a stitch length 2.4, which is a standard stitch length. I'm going to start with this mark here, reverse my stitch at that mark, so all the way around, and go to this mark, and then reverse my stitch. And I'm going to do a seam width of 3/8 of an inch. So that's 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn all the way around, and as you can see, I started off on here and gone all the way around, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to trim back this seam allowance now. So you'll see me taper in here. We want to keep the seam allowance full where the turning gap is. And I'm trimming it back to about 1/8 of an inch away. I'm going to go off at an angle in that corner and this corner here. Because I'm doing 1/8 of an inch away, I won't need to snip around these corners. However, if you want confidence of cutting as close to the sewn line as I have, use pinking shears, especially around the curve area. Okay. Or you can basically cut it back by 1/4 of an inch and snip all the way around, like do little notches. I'm going to poke the corners out, so I'm turning it right side facing out and poke out those 2 top corners. Okay, so if you've used cotton fabric, go ahead and give this a good press. Because I've used a PU, I'm still going to press it, but I'm going to press it from this side, and I'm just not going to press it as well. I just want a bit of heat so I can just get my poker tool back inside and roll these 2 seams here. Right, so given that's a good press, and if you're using PU, my advice is to let it cool down, because obviously with heat and plastic it can stretch even more, so just let it cool down like I just have. So I pressed from this side, so I went ahead and done the next step. The turning gap here on the actual cotton fabric side, I have poked up inside 3/8 of an inch and given that a good press. Now we need to work with this piece here next. You'll see me use this quite a lot. I'm going to use quilter's tape or wash away tape, depending on the brand that you're using. I'll flip this over, and just on the right side of this seam, I'm going to stick some quilter's tape on that area. When I can find the end. There you go. Now I know this isn't very sticky, it's gone a bit dry. Okay, and peel off that backing tape. and then I'm going to flip it over and fold that up inside and stick that line into it. Now the trick is to make sure it's a neat straight edge. But what I tend to do is make my lining edge a bit shorter underneath than my actual main outer fabric, which is my PU fabric. Just tuck that down a bit, like so. There you go. So I've got one straight edge along the edge, top edge, but if I get in quite close, it's marginal, like you can just see the outer fabric. That just means when you're sewing it, you're not going to see any raw edges or your lining from this. Now, because my PU keeps moving, I'm just going to pop some wonder clips on around the edge. Like so. I'm going to top stitch as close as I can, so I'm going to do like 1/8 of an inch all the way around just the curve edge, not the straight edge. And I'm going to use a stitch length number 3.5 to number 4. But if you are struggling to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, sorry, if you're struggling to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, do 1/4 of an inch away. Okay, so I've top stitched all the way around. I got quite close to some of the edges, that's fine. And as you can see, a bit of my fabric is showing. This is what I was talking about. It's best to use the same fabric that's your main outer bag. Let's just get rid of that bit there. Okay. So we're going to find the centre of the curve side. I do mark it because it won't be seen, but don't cut it, just mark it with like a marking tool. So you're going to fold it in half and mark it. I'm just going to mark it like 1/4 of an inch. You're going to get what they call the male part of the lock. So that's the bit that's got the press button. This bit that's got the collar on is called the female part. I'm going to pop the female part to one side and we're going to get the male part. Now for both locks, my advice is you'll need some Gutermann HT2 glue, which I sell, or you've got Beacon glue, which is a 2-in-1 glue. You're going to get your glue and just run some in the channel. So if you've got the one with the screws, run it on both sides. If you're like me, where you've got the one that's got the push rather than the screw closure, you're going to just run glue on the front side but inside, not the spiky side. You're going to let that just go tacky because it's warm, and I'm sorry if you can hear my fan. However, under studio lights and having extreme heat temperatures at the moment, I'm having to use a fan. So you're going to let this go tacky, and like I say, because it's warm it will go a bit more tacky faster. Wait a few minutes, and then where the mark is on the actual flap that you've just done, match it up to approximately the centre of your lock and push it into place. So my flap is going inside the channel. Just going to make sure that's centre. Right, so if you've got the screw option, you're going to flip the flap over and tighten up the screws. Because I've got the press one, I'm going to press this bit down here at the front. flip it over and then press it down at the back. Going to yank it a bit so it hooks on, which it hasn't at the moment, just bear with me. There you go. So you're going to just yank it slightly so the hooks inside hook onto the fabric. Once it's done that, you know it's actually in place and you can yank it. But with that glue, you are making it more stronger once that glue is finally set inside. Now, the glue that I've just used takes up to a couple of hours for it to properly set. So don't get really yanking it. But that's properly set, that is now. I'm going to pop this to one side and we're going to move on to the outer slip pocket pieces. So this is where we're going to need the pattern template. So let me just grab mine. And with the pattern template, where the triangle is, you're going to poke your scissors through the top of the triangle and then snip into those 2 black marks, so you should have a bit of free movement on the pattern piece. Now we're going to flip these both over and you're going to get a pen. It's both on the wrong side. I'm going to match up the pattern piece to one edge first, and you're going to draw at the top where that hole is, and then you're going to mark where those 2 marks are, like so. Then you're going to flip it over and do the same on this one as well, this side here. Then you're going to repeat it for this one here. Okay, so we've got those marks on, so it should be a dot with 2 little lines on the ends, and you should have that in both corners of the curve section on both pieces. I'm going to work on this one first. Where the 2 marks are on the ends, you're going to match those up together, right sides together. Then you're going to fold it, and you should have your dot on your fold. Like so. You're going to clip that section area, and then you're going to sew from that dot all the way to this end here. You're going to reverse your stitch at the start and at the end, so you should have like a triangle shape here. So you're going to do that for all of them. So I'm just going to match them all up together and do them all at the same time on my sewing machine. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my sewing machine now and sew from that dot all the way to those marks there and reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. There is no seam allowance. You've just got to eyeball a line from there to there. Now if you are a very new beginner, you can always draw it on if you want to. And you're going to do that for all 4. So what I didn't mention was I used a stitch length 2.4 when sewing these together. So I've sewn them together, as you can see. I've sewn from corner, from the 2 little marks to the actual dot. I've done that for all 4 pieces. Now the next thing you're going to do is to cut away some of the bulk. Now I personally don't like cutting these darts. It makes it weaker. So I end up cutting into the seam, like so. Then I just open it up, like so. Pop a clip on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and base stitch those 2 seams flat, and I'm going to base stitch about 1/4 inch away from the edge. I'm going to do that for all 4. Okay, so I've gone and base stitched those, all 4 of those. I'm going to pop the line into one side because we need to install the female lock. Now I've done it slightly different on this video than the pattern. Now if you're installing the lock that has screws and has a different washer, don't do the darts yet. Go and do it when the pattern piece is flat. Now because I'm doing it with this specific washer, I find in the past when I have used this one to actually sew the darts in, because then I can kind of work out where my centre is a bit more and how this is going to lie, because it's quite a large washer. So we're going to fold this in half and we're going to find the centre top line. Now I'm going to snip it in about 1/8 of an inch in. Okay, so that's my centre. I'm going to put that on this line here on my cutting mat. Okay. Going to get my washer, and I know I've got 3 sections that I've cut out. That is my top of my female part, because the collar will go towards the top, not the bottom. We need to find the centre of this, so I'm just going to move this slightly out of the way. I'm just going to measure it, and I'm just going to use my chalk pencil to eyeball the centre. So the washer is 1 3/4 inches wide. No, hang on. Let's take that back. So it's 1 inch. 1 inch and 7/8. So I need to basically divide that into the centre. So we're going, how many eighths is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 eighths. So we need to find 7.5 basically. So there. Now you probably won't see that. I can see my imaginary little mark, and it's 7.5 this way, 7.5 this way as well. So we really are going to aim as that as my centre. We need to measure down, so we are measuring down 3 inches and 3/4 inches and mark. So put that on there. 3 3/4, so that's 1, 2, 3, and 3/4 is about there. Now follow the pattern instructions for the 2 washer install if you have brought the screw type lock. Now that is my mark there. Making sure that your washer for this particular one has the one cut out at the top. We're going to eyeball this on the centre, so that's about right. Then where those cutouts are, you're going to draw as close to the washer as possible. Okay, and then you're going to cut into those marks that you've just made, not the centre one, but the 3 marks, or the 4 slits, or the 2 slits, depending on what type of one that you actually have. Now I just like to start off my hole in PU and then get a little micro pair of scissors in. So I've got my little scissors, embroidery scissors, and now if you use cotton fabric for your contrast, you will need to use fray check on these sections here once you've cut the holes. Okay, then you're going to get the female part of the lock and pop those prongs at the back through those holes that you've just made. all the way through to the back. Let's poke those corners out. Make sure it's straight. You don't want a crooked collar. That's straight. Then you're going to pop your washer over the top. Close off those prongs like so. Really push it down like so. And then I go one step further because I don't want to wreck my lining fabric. I go ahead and stick some electrical tape, duct tape, whatever you want to call it, over the top of the washer area. I'm using duct tape, and to be fair, I don't know why I brought one with unicorns on, because it's hidden. You can't see it. Once the bag's constructed, you'll never see this because it's totally inside. So yeah, I think I was just having a Becky moment and wanted some unicorns in my life. Right, okay. Then the next thing we're going to do is just finish making the outer slip pocket. So I'm going to pop that. I'm poking out the corners this way. I'm going to get the lining piece and pop that right side facing down, but I'm going to poke the corners in so it basically matches up here. And then we're going to clip along that top edge first. Okay, the next thing you're going to match up is those dart areas. So that's where these triangle bits are. So where the seam is of the dart on the lining piece, you're going to match it up to the dart seam on your outer piece and give that a clip. And same with this one as well. Then you're going to clip down this one side. Same on this one. Now you will get bumpiness on the cotton fabric piece, which hasn't got the female part of the snap of the press lock. Sorry, I can't get my words out. It's because it's just having to move around that. Then you're going to clip approximately an inch in from those corners here in. And same with this one. Match up those edges. So I'm going to sew from this side. I'm just going to turn that way. Okay. I'm going to get my pen, and we're now going to leave a turning gap on the bottom edge of this pocket. I'm going to leave a turning gap of around about 4 inches. Okay, so you're going to stitch 3/8 of an inch all the way around from one mark to the next mark. You're going to knot stitch this part here. You're going to use a stitch length 2.4, and when I come to pivot around these corners here, I like to make sure my needle is down before I move around this area here. Then I'm going to come back, trim back the seam allowance like before. Then I'm going to go away and give it a good press from my lining side. But if you've used a quilter's weight cotton or a fabric that you can press it from either side. Roll those seams, and where you've got the two corners, when you're cutting away the seams, cut at an angle as well. Leave this seam allowance full, this turning gap area full. So I've gone and pressed and turned it the right side facing out. I'm giving it a good press. I've started off poking up the lining part up inside, just like we did on the flap piece. But we are going to now top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here. Make sure you back stitch at both ends and at the start. Use a stitch length 3.5 to number 4 on your sewing machine. Okay, so we're going to basically do what we did before on the top of the flap where we closed off this. Yes, mine's coming undone, so I'm just going to pop some clips in mine, or a clip, just to stop that from happening. So we're going to do the same with the bottom turning gap. I've already started it by pressing the lining up. Just going to do this part here. Once again, quilter's tape, wonder tape, whatever double-sided sticky tape that manufacturing that you use. Peel off the backing. Now this has got a slight curve to it, so you've got to try and estimate where that curve is. And that's close to it. I just need to sort out the lining bit now. There you go. Okay, so I've stuck that into place. I'm going to pop this to one side, but I'm going to pop a few clips on to stop it from coming undone. Okay, so we're popping the flap and the slip pocket part to one side. You're going to grab your main outer pattern piece, and like I said before at the start of the video, you're going to make some holes every 1/2 inch along that dotted line. One on the actual right at the top, and then you're also going to do one right in where the paper edge is. You're going to get your main outer fabric piece, and you've already attached all your stabilizers to it. You're going to pop your pattern piece on top. You're going to get a marking tool which can erase. I'm using a chalk pencil, and through each of those holes you're going to mark. Like so. Then you are going to flip this over, and I can just faintly see where the marks are. Now, because the flower's white, I'm just going to get my friction pen in where that area is. I say it's white, but I can't see that white chalk. So now I can see where that is, and then it goes back into my chalk again. Use your discretion. Flip the pattern piece over, match up the edges, and repeat the same size. Now I've got a pink flower around about here. So I've just used my friction pen on where I think that flower is. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is find the centre top and centre bottom of this main outer piece. It will just save you in the long run having to find it once the pocket's sewn on. Okay. Now we're going to get the outer slip pocket that we've just made, pop the main body to one side. Totally up to you what you use. You can use quilter's tape or you can use fabric glue. I'm going to use fabric glue because I've got a bit more control over the fabric glue. I'm using a white fabric glue, so if I get it onto my main pieces of fabric, I can just use a damp cloth and wipe it off straight away. It basically dries clear, however I just like to wipe it off anyway with a damp cloth. We're going to run glue on the wrong side of the slip pocket within the seam allowance, and you don't need that much. So I'm going to speed up the video footage now so you can see me do that. So now I've got that on my pocket. I generally find just leaving it to dry a little bit helps. However, because of the heat, I'm finding that it's going tacky quite faster than normal. So where you've popped your marks, here and here, the top marks, and then going round, the pocket edge, this pocket edge will actually sit up on top of this mark. It won't go past those marks to the opposite side. It's got to stay within those marks. So I always like to start with the top bits there. And just, I've got some glue on my hands, so just bear with me. I hate the feel of glue, but it's quite effective when it comes to bag making. So I'm just going to really push those down, that area down. Then I'm just going to push down to where those marks are. Okay, that's actually virtually perfect. So if you have used quilter's weight cotton on your front of your slip pocket, go ahead and just run your iron along that. If you get some on your iron base, don't worry, wet damp cloth wipes it off because it's a water-based glue anyway. I can't press, so I'm going to say leave that to go tacky. So I'm just going to do something in the kitchen, make myself a cup of tea and let that go really tacky, and basically then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so mine's gone tacky. I also went round with a damp cloth where it actually came off. I've missed a bit here, but where it came off on the glue came onto this section here. So now we are going to top stitch as close as you can get. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4, and basically just if you need to push it down. Now the reason why we got you to use the same fabric inside as this fabric is because if you can actually look really close, which I will show you on the next footage bit, you can actually see a little bit. So it just means that you are matching it up to what the actual bag looks like, rather than having something extra showing. Now one of my testers wasn't convinced that it looked right, so she unpicked hers, which I thought looked alright when she did it, but she actually added piping all the way around. Personal preference, this is your bag, this is going to be yours, or you're making it for someone, ask them if they want piping on, because it actually really did give it a nice look. And she also put piping around the edge here as well. Now I know why she did the piping in the end, is because she didn't have enough of her main fabric and she used her lining fabric on the back, which was a completely totally opposite colour to what the bag was looking like on the outside. So she went and used a contrast binding, piping, just to make it a lot nicer to the eye. Right, so I'm going to go to the sewing machine, top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, reverse my stitches at the start and at the end, and you're going to use the stitch length number 4. Okay, so I've gone ahead and top stitched around, as you can see. Now the next thing we're going to do is get the main body pattern piece, and we're going to fold it here where it says the padded slip pocket. And you're going to match this up again. Doesn't matter if you squash the pocket, we're going to stuff it out at the end result anyway. You're going to pop that on, and you're going to draw with a disappearing pen on the folded line up here, and you're going to flip it over and repeat the same. Okay. Then from that mark there, you're going to measure towards the slip pocket 1/4 inch. So towards the slip pocket you're going to measure 1/4 inch and draw another line. Hey, that's a bit too much. Okay. Okay, that's for your placement of your flap. So I'm just gonna get any creases out that I made just on that slip pocket. Okay. Gonna get your flap, and you're gonna run on the wrong side on the top edge quilter's tape or wash away tape. Okay, so those 2 lines that you've just drawn on are guidelines. You do not want the edge of the top of the flap to be past that top line, but you also don't want that edge of the flap to be past that bottom line. You naturally want everything to be stuck within those 2 lines. So what I tend to do is clip that in, and then I eyeball that and just temporarily stick it down like so. Then I measure to make sure it's straight before I click it down, push it down completely. There you go. Wasn't exactly completely straight. There you go. And stick that down. So you're going to do 2 rows of stitches now, top stitching. You're going to do 1/8 of an inch away from the top and reverse your stitches at the start and at the end, and then you're going to do 1/4 inch away from the top, making sure you reverse your start and at the end. I'm going to use a stitch length 4 because there's quite a bit of bulkiness in that area. Okay, so I've gone ahead and top stitched 2 rows of stitches. Now to start the pocket to start getting its shape, I tend to open it up and stuff it out with some stuffing, just right to the bottom, so it basically starts getting the shape that it needs. And especially with the heat today, it will basically get enough shape from the heat, especially because I use PU. Okay, so we're going to pop this to one side, and we're going to work with the 2 metal rectangular ring tabs. So you're going to need your 2 of your 4 rectangular rings and 2 of your tabs. You're going to flip those right sides over. Now because I've used PU, I'm going to use the draw a line and fold and stick. If you've used cotton fabric or a fabric that you can iron, you're going to just bring those 2 long sides into the centre and give them a good press on both pieces. But I'm going to do the draw a line and stick method because obviously I've used a non-iron fabric. So the next thing you're going to do is on either of the short ends run quilter's tape on the wrong side of those tabs. Okay, I'm going to remove 2 of those clips. I'm going to get one of my rectangle rings and feed that through. I'm going to peel off that backing tape off that bit there. I'm going to fold that over so it meets to the wrong side and clip. And the same with this piece here. I'm going to fold this part up so the 2 raw edges meet in the centre on the back and clip. Okay, then I'm just going to repeat the same for this one as well. Okay, so it should look like that at the back and that at the front. You should have 2 of those. So I'm going to flip those both over, and on the back I'm just going to run 2 lines of quilter's tape. I'm going to do one at a time. Let's put that to one side for a minute. Okay, then you're going to get your main outer body piece, and you know where you find the top of the centre, top edge. You're going to measure from that top edge 2 1/4 inches. There. You're going to peel off this backing tape off the tab. The folded edge at the bottom opposite to the rectangle ring should match up to where your top of your slip pocket flap is, and you're going to stick that right next to the quilter's roll. Now just double check to make sure. Yep. Then you're going to repeat for this side tab as well. And you should have equal amount of distance either side of the 2 rectangle tabs. Right, so you're going to top stitch a rectangle all the way around both of these tabs. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch away. However, I know I'm not going to be able to get 1/8 of an inch away from this rectangle ring. I'm going to sew it as close as I can. Now, if you can move your needle position at this point on your sewing machine, do it. I can't because I'm actually using a heavy duty sewing machine and the needle position doesn't move. So I'm just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away and as close as I can get to the rectangle rings. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4, and I am going to reverse my stitch, but I'm going to try and hide it within the seam, the sewn line that I've already sewn. Okay, so I've gone and sewed around those. Now this is personal choice. I'm going to add 2 rivets, 1 in each section, just for decoration. I don't always rivet to hold things into place. I do it more for decoration. So I'm going to find the centre, punch some holes, and then get the rivet press and press those. You can use Chicago screws if you want to. I'm using a Japanese hole punching tool. To punch my hole in. I'm just making sure it's level before I punch that hole. and that's poked 2 holes for me. I've got my rivet, which has got a barrel and a cap. I'm going to poke that through to the back. Same with this one here. Now my hole hasn't gone all the way through, so I'm just going to help that. There you go, I know that's gone all the way through. I felt the crunch. Poke that through. Flip this over, and you'll just see the barrel poking out at the back. You get the cap side, the single cap, and pop that over the barrel and do that on both. Now if you've got a hand setting tool, you'll use the hammer and anvil. I'm going to use a press which has got the Pacific die on for me to press these into place. There you go, I've got those set into place. So the next bit is optional. We're going to put the name plate, the handmade tag, into that area there. So I have in the pattern done some basic measurements for you. Just follow those basic measurements. I'm going to speed up the footage now because this is an optional extra anyway. And then we're going to pop this to one side, and then we're going to move on to the next section, and that's making the back panel of the bag.